Well, hi everybody. Thank you. The very special last slot, 5 p.m. afternoon. So let's liven it up a little bit. So as always, when I do public speaking, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, then tell you, and then tell you what I just told you. So it sticks. And what I'll be presenting in a short presentation today is a concept, one aspect of the long-running concept of Web3 identity. And there's specific aspect of the identity that we're doing. We started doing, as you see, we explored the concept of how would you do a credit rating, which some of you might be familiar with in the traditional world. We wanted to do it on chain. And of course, the events of the past 2 months with the US government cracking down on crypto has proved a lot of input into our system. And so I'll address some of that as well. So it's about two things. It's about credit rating, and it's about an NFT that says, I'm not an American. So let's go into this. Our mission is to provide billions of humans with a Web3 credit rating in the next couple of years. But why is this? What is a credit rating, right? I mean, you might be familiar with it in the off-chain world. What is a credit rating agency? These are American credit rating agencies, but a credit rating agency, it looks at you, how good you are, how likely you are to repay debts, how reliable you are as a creditor. In other words, how did credit rating used to be done? So this is actually, it used to be giant filing cabinets. It's basically a giant agency that has files on everybody. There's files on hundreds of millions of consumers across the entire developed world. It used to be done on little index cards, and then it used to be done on computers, just servers. Our idea was to bring that into the Web3 environment and unify a credit rating for on-chain and off-chain identities, and to basically provide a link between your off-chain activity and on-chain. So how do we do that? How would you install an app on someone's phone, essentially a wallet, right? An Ethereum wallet or Polygon wallet that could have access to a lot of this metadata. So all these are specific points of metadata that your phone emits. So they're split up into the basic ones. So there's device information, such as device ID, operating system, brand, hardware, manufacturer. Then you have information, a ton of information from your network. Then you have a ton of information from your calendar, call information, installed apps. It goes on and on and on. The activity of your phone itself says a lot about you. Now, the way this is done traditional is that all this, if you install an app from a company, like a Web2 company that wants to do an alternative credit rating on you, is they take all this information from your phone, including how often you called, how long the calls were, not necessarily who you called. They send this to a centralized company, they do the credit rating, and then they send the information back to you. Now that's kind of sucky, right? I wouldn't want to do that. What if you could do all this on device? In other words, if you had an app that on the specific device that you had took all this, calculated a unique behavior or credit score or how likely you were to repay, for example, DeFi loans, and then issued you an on-chain credit rating, right? That was the idea. This was the idea. This is what we started to do. This is what we started up to do at the beginning of this year. Now, you can try it out. There's a prototype we did. It's an Android, unfortunately, because it's much easier to hack on Android. And we didn't even try argue with Apple about having access to all those data points because Apple's very restrictive. But it's an app that you can try, and it's the credit rating aspect of your identity. And we thought that we're going to go, okay, well, credit rating, and we're going to go with that. Now, of course, what has been happening in the past 1 or 2 months in the crypto space, especially in the United States, is that it has, we built it on Polygon, and there's a lot of technical detail that I'm sort of very happy to nerd out with you over a beer after the talk. But we thought we're just going to do credit ratings. You know, your identity, your real-world identity aspects of such as name, where you live, who you are, and then on-chain identity has aspects of like, okay, what coins you have, what NFTs you have, what credit rating you might have. But then a very important piece of identity in the past 2 months that came up, of course, jumping through our, the decentralized infrastructure, is that very, very important, especially in the US, now that the US government has basically decided to destroy crypto in the United States, a lot of projects that wanted to use our credit rating, they were like, well, look, that's all very fine and good, doing credit ratings on people, but what we need to do is make sure that the SEC doesn't kill us and Gary Gensler doesn't sue us. So our agenda on doing credit ratings and giving people access to sovereign credit ratings that are not dependent on any centralized party has been completely railroaded by the activities of this man, right? Now, how many of you know this man? Right, okay, a couple of you, okay? His name is Gary, and Gary's mission is to completely destroy crypto, okay? And he and the other people in the government are very, very determined to do so. And they might succeed, we'll see. But Gary's actions have scared a lot of people in DAOs, protocols, overseas as well. In other words, we get calls from our friends in the community. It's like, okay, I'm in Europe, I'm in Asia, I'm in Singapore, I have my Switzerland Foundation or like my Marshall Islands DAO LLC, and we're gonna be launching a coin, and we're gonna get into trouble if we sell to Americans. If we might be overseas, all our users might be overseas, all our programmers might be overseas, our company is overseas, it's not in America, but if we sell to a single American, that's a problem because Gary's gonna go after you, right? Not a nice man, right? Look at his face. Here I include some, this is from yesterday. I prepared my presentation 2 weeks ago, right? And just in the last 2 days, I couldn't resist, right? Because there's just so many choice quotes. And I wanted to quote you some, not to scare you too much. And I don't think he's right, but it bears keeping in mind what's the thinking inside the beast, right? Now, Mr. Gary says, SEC Chair Gary Gensler says, we don't need more digital currency, okay? Like, he wants to kill this, not just regulate, but actually destroy the centralized exchanges in the United States. His work is made much easier by people in the centralized exchanges, like this genius, Binance Chief Compliance Officer in 2018, who said, quote, we are operating as a fucking unlicensed securities exchange in the USA, bro, okay? That's an actual quote in writing, okay? Now, this makes Gary's work much easier, right? This and this has led to hundreds of calls, hundreds of projects reaching out to us. Is like, okay, if this is the case, then what's the logical next step? Is that, and more quotes from the SEC, I won't bore you with that, is that you need something that can prove that you didn't sell to Americans, okay? In other words, what we came up with, instead of giving people credit ratings, we give people NFTs that say, I'm not an American. It's a nice red NFT. It's the ultimate collectible, okay? It has a price of 0, but it's priceless, okay? It's big and red and says not American. And the way to get it, and it operates on many different chains. The testnet is live. You can try it if you have some girly testnet ETH. You can try this. Any Americans in the audience? Cool. Try your driver's license. It will stop you and say, no, sorry, right? And if there's any Euros, or people from Asia in the audience, okay, well, these Americans, the rest are not, so you can try it too. And you basically, the bad news, this is the good news. The bad news, of course, in order to prove that you're not American, we have to actually do the whole AML KYC game, right? So that's the bad news, right? The way we try to mitigate the problems with AML KYC, and I had to do it as anyone else, right? But what we do is that, imagine, I always ask this this question: how many times have you done the whole passport game in crypto? Like, who's done it? Let's say never. Who's never done the passport game when submitting for any? Never, never. Anyone? Never. Okay, good, good. Hardcore, good. Well done. Who's done it like less than 5 times? I mean, okay, good. Who's done it more than 5 times? Okay, and who's like done it like, oh my fucking god, all I'm doing is showing fucking passport, right? Well, to be in crypto, but which is really what it is. It's so sad that it's degenerated into that. Now, what if that annoyance could be done once, right? And that's what this is, right? We do it once. We don't store any of the details on chain. We keep that with a third-party provider. There's no information in this. It just guarantees that you're not an American. And so the projects that want to launch coins, they look at it, it's like, okay, we can drop coins to this, all right? So that's really what we've sort of pivoted into, from credit ratings to not American. And this is just an example, of course. We think that over the next 5 or 10 years, the compliance strategy of many crypto projects, and I've had many fruitful discussions here at the conference, ranging from this is awesome, beautiful, to fuck you, man, right? And everything in between. But I think the compliance strategy of the entire crypto industry for the past 10 years, at least in my words, could be summarized as run and hide, right? Oh, well, you know, we'll go get a Switzerland foundation, we'll move our programmers outside of the United States, and it will be fine. And the answer is no, it won't. Run and hide is likely not going to work going forward. We think the next 10 years will be like lawful, essentially, legal compliance, voluntary, and it doesn't have to always suck. And we try to do our part. So not American is just the first example, and there'll be many examples. There's the regulatory regime coming up in the European Union, which is the MICA or MICA, whatever you pronounce it. So there could be opt-in NFTs like I am a European, or whatever specific version of that could be in other places. Now, obviously, this is all opt-in. It's voluntary, right? No one's forcing you to do this. It's decentralized. And we can go into the sort of how we try to keep the things separate. So your real world identity is not really tied to the on-chain identity. All it is for the project, when they're sued by the SEC 5 years from now, they can say, oh, look, no, we really, really checked. We really, really didn't sell to Americans, and we can prove so. So, coming to the end, I wanted to give you our Twitter account. Unfortunately, was suspended. So don't know what we posted. The government didn't like us, I guess. So it's microlia _ and so I think that's it. What I'd like to leave you with is that I've been in crypto for some time, and I absolutely love the completely anonymous part of it, the sort of the cypherpunk aspect, you know, completely anonymous. DeFi, I think, for example, like the Railgun guys, I don't know if any of you have tried a Railgun. I think that's really cool, and that will always be there, and I think that's fantastic. But for the part of crypto that is in compliance or wants to be in compliance with the laws in the EU and in the US, we want to play the part of being the least amount of annoyance and the least amount of disclosure that still brings you into compliance for the project. So that's the idea. So I'll leave you with that, and we have 5 minutes, and so I guess I'll open up for questions. Yes, please.
Hey, you mentioned that you are storing the data from the IDs somewhere in a third party. If you're using zero-knowledge proofs, why aren't you just doing it once and then deleting the information and leaving it on the user? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Good question, right? In other words, how do you do it, right? So we don't want to become a giant warehouse of pictures of passports for very obvious reasons, right? That just makes us a very hackable target. We use, you know, there's all these established third parties that do this whole passport game, what I call the passport game, right? You can set the retention policy to whatever you want, right? The projects that we help make sure that they filter out Americans, the statute on limitations, in other words, the time that the SEC has to sue you is around 5 years. They have 5 years to sue you. Realistically, the projects would want us, if worse comes to worse and they get sued and they have to go to court and they have to show, I mean, it should be sufficient for the court to say, look, 5 years ago we checked, they were not using Tor, they were not using VPN, they were from that country, we checked their passport, we checked that they were alive. What more could we have possibly done? There was nothing more we could have done. And that will be the end of the story. We've checked everyone. Now, so you set a retention policy so that the information eventually, it's a normal Web 2 company, so it's just stored on some instance, eventually gets deleted, right? And we do not link the Ethereum addresses with the identities. We don't, for obvious reasons, right? Yeah, that's a whole can of worms, and we can, nerd out over a beer. How you can do this even better, of course, do this in a ZK way, right? So that NFT would be shielded, and no one can see who has it. But you, if you choose, you can attest in a cryptographically proven way that, yes, I am not an American, but no one else can see it. Make sense? Okay.
Yeah, so this is, I think, one of the hardest things for people to get their head around with ZK proofs.
Yes.
Is that you're proving what you're not. Correct. Yeah.
It's tough. It's technically what you're proving is that there's an attestation authority, which in this case is us, that has attested at some point in the past that they've checked your documents and said that you're not American. That's what you're technically signing. You're signing a statement that someone else has attested that you're not American, right? We've racked our heads and tried to come up with different ways how to do this. We thought this was the least damaging way how to do so.
Another question?
You have another one here?
Okay.
Hi, thanks for the great talk. My situation is kind of unique because I live legally in the U.S., but I'm South Korean. My citizenship is in South Korea, and I live in the U.S. And the SEC is regulating everybody that lives legally in the U.S. So I can fake it. Just come to Europe for a couple months and get the I'm not, or go to South Korea, go back to South Korea for a couple months, got the I'm not American NFT, and then go back to the U.S. And how are you going to, take care of that loophole?
Yeah, there's many different edge cases, right? One edge case is someone who has 3 citizenships, right? What do you do then? Another edge case is yours and mine too, right? I have European and American citizenship, both, right? So there's different things you can do, right? You do the check when you're issuing the NFT. In other words, depending on how hard we want to go, we might require you to actually be on a non-Tor, non-VPN, clean residential IP in your home country of residence of your identity document. In other words, maybe South Korea in your case. When you check, then it's issued. You get your I'm not an American NFT. When the project is selling you your coin, a hard check might be that we will still require you to be physically present in your home country. That will get rid of the use case of you, taking your NFT with you back to America.
From your side?
From our side,
yeah. Not from the user's side?
Not from your side. Another sort of edge case, it's a very common one, is there's a whole bunch of Europeans in Silicon Valley, right, that have the nice little European ID, trying to get their I'm not an American NFT. In that case, they're US residents, absolutely not. Like, if they're doing that in America from an American residential IP, using a European ID, you're still a US resident. If you're using VPN, you're automatically US resident, or Tor, like automatically, right? So you're not getting that. There's many use cases. You could come up with 1,000 different use cases. The question is, did the protocol, or did we make absolutely everything humanly possible we possibly could have had to check whether they didn't do an unregistered securities sale, right? And we would argue that we've done everything we could, right? We've checked where they're located, where their papers are, where they were resident, da-da-da-da-da. There was nothing more we could have done at that point. Does that make sense? There are edge cases, obviously.
Another question? Since this is our last talk and we do have time.
We can nerd out on the details over a beer, but yeah, it's okay.
Cool. So, with this great talk, we end the
Thank you.
first day of programming for Prague DeFi. Hope to see you guys here tomorrow. Also,
Thank you.
Keith Prague is starting. Pavel, round of applause for yourself. Thank you so much for coming, and see you guys tomorrow.